Imagine standing in front of a Picasso painting, and at first glance you feel like you're staring into a puzzle made of shattered glass. Your eyes dart from one shape to another, trying to make sense of the faces, the instruments, the bottles, or maybe even the landscapes that never seem to sit still. But what if I told you that within this seemingly chaotic arrangement, Picasso was hiding secret codes, clues, and messages that only reveal themselves if you know how to look? Today we're diving into the hidden world of Cubism, peeling back the layers of paint and mystery to uncover the secrets Picasso left behind. Picasso wasn't just an artist who wanted to shock the world with bizarre new forms. He was also a master storyteller who used shapes, symbols, and even hidden text to create a second language on his canvases. Let's take one of his most famous works, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, painted in 1907. At first sight, it's a wild tangle of angular bodies and haunting faces. But hidden within those jagged forms is a radical idea. Picasso was tearing apart centuries of European painting traditions and replacing them with something new, something fractured, something that would forever change the way we see art. The sharp lines and fractured bodies are more than artistic choices. They're symbols of a world that was itself fractured, a society on the brink of war and change. And if you look closely at Picasso's Cubist works, you'll often find letters, fragments of newspaper, and even musical notes tucked into the composition. These weren't random decorations. They were Picasso's way of embedding codes from the real world into his paintings. Take, for example, his work, Still Life with Chair Caning from 1912. At first, it looks like a simple still life with fruit and a glass, but then your eye catches a strange detail. The surface of the canvas is ringed by a piece of oilcloth printed with the pattern of a chair's woven seat. Picasso literally glued the outside world into his painting. This was more than an experiment. It was a code. A reminder that paintings are not just windows into imaginary worlds, but also objects tied to reality. In many of his collages, Picasso slipped in fragments of newspapers with specific headlines. Sometimes the articles were about politics, sometimes about theater or music, but they always gave a hidden context to the image. If you knew the reference, you were in on the secret. If not, it just looked like part of the design. One of the most fascinating things about Picasso's Cubism is how it plays with time and perspective. In traditional painting, you see a single moment from a single angle. Picasso shattered that rule. He wanted you to see multiple perspectives all at once. A bottle of wine isn't just a bottle. It's a top view, a side view, a shadow, and a reflection, all collapsed into one image. That technique is like a code that forces you to rethink how reality can be represented. Look at his 1910 portrait of Ambroise Vollard. The canvas dissolves into a kaleidoscope of planes and shadows, and the figure almost vanishes. But if you trace the lines carefully, you begin to see eyes, a nose, hands folded. The code here is patience. Only through careful observation does the image emerge, as if Picasso wanted to reward those who take the time to look beyond the surface. Now let's talk about musical codes. Picasso loved music, and it shows. Guitars and violins appear again and again in his Cubist paintings. But they're not just instruments, they're metaphors. The guitar, with its curves and hollow body, becomes a stand-in for the human form. The strings echo the tension between order and chaos. In some paintings, the musical notes drawn on the canvas are not random. They match popular songs of the day, secret nods to the cultural soundtrack of early 20th century Paris. And what about numbers? In certain works, subtle numerals appear, on a wine label, on a slip of newspaper. Were these random? Or were they personal codes, marking dates, ages, or events in Picasso's life? We may never know for certain, but art historians have found clues suggesting that Picasso often slipped in references to friends, lovers, and even political events through these numbers. Speaking of politics, we cannot ignore Guernica, Picasso's monumental response to the bombing of a Spanish town during the Civil War. At first, it doesn't look like Cubism in the traditional sense, but its fractured forms and hidden symbols are part of the same coded language. The bull, the horse, the broken sword, the light bulb, all of these are symbols packed with meaning. Some scholars argue that even the patterns of light and shadow carry coded references to photography and newsprint, connecting the painting to the act of witnessing violence in the modern age. The codes in Picasso's art weren't always political or dramatic. Sometimes they were playful. He loved to tease viewers by embedding secret jokes. For instance, in some collages, he inserted labels from wine bottles that his friends loved, almost like leaving inside jokes on the canvas for his inner circle. Think of Picasso's Cubism as a giant conversation. On one level, it's about objects and perspectives. On another, it's about politics, music, literature, and personal stories. Each canvas is a riddle, a set of clues waiting to be decoded. When you stand in front of one of his works today, try not to ask yourself only, what is this supposed to be? Instead, ask, what clues has he left for me? What story is hiding between the cracks of these fractured planes? You might notice that a newspaper clipping hints at the date the work was made. A letter might represent the name of a friend. A guitar might whisper a song that once filled a smoky Paris cafe. Suddenly, the canvas is no longer flat paint. It's alive with voices, laughter, and echoes of history. Picasso once said, "Art is a lie that makes us realize truth." Perhaps the hidden codes in his Cubist paintings are part of that lie, a carefully constructed deception that leads us closer to the truth of his world. The next time you see a Picasso in a museum, step closer. Let your eyes wander the strange geometry, and don't be afraid to get lost. Somewhere in the puzzle of angles and shapes, a secret is waiting for you. And when you find it, you'll realize that Cubism was never about breaking reality apart. It was about finding new ways to see it whole. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that the code Picasso left behind was meant not only for the people of his time, but also for us, for anyone brave enough to look closer and listen to what the shapes are trying to say. So the question is, the next time you look at one of his Cubist masterpieces, will you see just a jumble of fractured forms? Or will you catch the hidden codes, the whispers of history, the secrets of Picasso's world that have been hiding there all along?
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Feel free to share it with a friend who loves a good mystery. And if you haven't already, please subscribe so you won't miss the next story. There's a lot more to uncover, and I'd love to have you along for the journey.